I'm Matt Jacques with Victory First. Welcome to Trigger Time TV. Now we head out to Shadow 6. Jim and Melissa Gilliland are going to teach us baselines. When it fails, getting that rifle back to a baseline. Take it away, Jim.
Hey everybody, it's Melissa and Jim Gilliland with Shadow 6. In this episode, we're going over baseline.
So essentially, baseline is nothing more than once you got your rifle out of the box from the factory or for the custom shop, you got your rings and your mounts on and your scope, you've cleaned it, you've broke it in, you've zeroed it, and it's set that first day at the range. That is your baseline. That is when your rifle is performing at its absolute best, and that's where you want to always keep it to. So essentially, as long as you got some measurable things on the rifle that you can look at, you can always bring it back to that baseline. And one of the things I've noticed through the years of shooting is any time that my equipment's not doing something I think it should, or I'm just not performing the way that I think I should with it, then it's probably because I didn't go back to my baselines. I didn't go and do my pre-fire checks and ensure that my rifle was set, ready for me to shoot it, instead of just going out and shooting it and being ill prepared. Some of the things that I do to ensure this is I will start at the muzzle and work to the buttstock, or I'll go from buttstock to muzzle and check a few things along the way. Now I always start at the muzzle and I work my way back, and I do it the same way every time so I'll know if I miss something. And so I'll start off, I'll come up and give the muzzle, my brake, a few turns just to make sure it's on good and tight. I'll make sure it's timed correctly, that the baffles are where they're supposed to be, and I'll check on the inside to make sure my crown's still good and sharp and the little flowers in there the way it should. I'll make sure the barrel is still clean and there's nothing on the outside, and I will check and make sure that the barrel's still free floating. I'll give the rifle a twist while holding the stock, just to make sure there's no movement there, as well as the scope back and forth and then forward and backward, just to make sure that there's no movement in there. I'll pull my torquing devices out, and I'll make sure that all my nuts and bolts are torqued down the way they're supposed to be, and I'll make sure that I'm on zero on my windage, and I'll make sure I'm zeroed on my elevation. I'll check my parallax, make sure it moves freely, and I'll turn my lighted reticle on and look through just to make sure everything internal of the scope's correct. I'll flip my rifle over. I'll torque down my two main bolts. I'll make sure that my ambidextrous magazine release works, make sure my bolt moves freely, and that my safety works. And with this R Brothers rifle and the traditional stock that it's in, that's generally about all I have to do to make sure that this rifle is where I want it to be anytime I want it to be there. So, in saying that, because I shoot a traditional stock and Melissa is shooting a chassis, then let's get some of her ideas on what she does to make sure that her rifle shoots the way it's supposed to.
Well, I shoot for Ashbury Precision Ordnance. On top of all the points that Jim just made on his rifle, one additional feature on my chassis is the adjustable buttstock. I like to make sure that it is freely moving. It's just a push of a button. I also make sure that my cheek piece is adjusted to the height that I need it. And other than that, that's about it.
So, and you'll notice, when you go back and forth, that the rifles, no matter what chassis you have it in or what configuration you have, it's basically the same checks that go from front to back or back to front. And so as long as you're doing these, and as long as you know the specifics about your rifle, then you should always be able to bring it back to that perfect position or your baseline, to where you know what your rifle is doing, how it's going to act, and what you need to do once you see it not doing the things that you expect it to do. Now, one of the other things you can do if you don't have anything to mark is you can take a paint marker or some kind of Sharpie or something like that, and you can mark down your bolt lines so you can make sure that your scope hasn't turned since the last time you checked it. All right, and the same thing on your receiver bolts. You can do the same thing with that too. And also, the same checks can be done with your carbines. It's all the same thing. You got to check the same functions to make sure that this rifle is ready for you to shoot it no matter what. you go through these prescribed steps. You make sure that your rifle is set to its baseline, that it is always perfect, and it will always perform the way you intend your rifles to perform. You be at your best, it'll be at its best. But you got to make sure that you shoot it enough to know what you can and can't do to affect this rifle in the most positive manner possible. So, get your rifles out, get them clean, put them on the range, find that baseline, and you'll always be where you need to start. And until next time, you guys hunt the wolf.
Protect the flock.
Trigger Time TV is brought to you by Raven Concealment System, Troy Industries, Troy Defense, Sword USA, US Optics, Mayflower Tactical, Arbros, Keltec, Dark Angel, Black Hills Ammunition, Yeti, Aimpoint, Wiley X, and Wilson Combat.